Welcome. Find a nice and comfortable seated position. A nice way to approach a seated position on the mat is to imagine that you're sitting right up against the wall. So get length in your spine, relax your shoulders down, and then when you're ready, start by closing your eyes. And once you've got a breathing pattern that you find that you're going to commit to for the practice, then slowly start to open your eyes. Take the left leg out to the front of the mat into a 90-degree angle, taking the opposite leg back. So the right leg at the back, left leg in front. Make sure the front leg's at 90. You can first stay up on the hands. So the idea is to push the lower body into the floor. It's almost as if you work the right hip towards the mat, but it's not going to be possible to square it off because of the shape of the back leg. But being on the hands, start to twist with the torso towards the left. So we're starting to open up to the left, feeling a nice and subtle spinal twist. Might even find a nice stretch along the abdomen. Breathing stays deep. Slowly come back to center. We'll switch over to the opposite side. So simply flip the right leg into that 90-degree angle, left leg pulling back, and as you do that, be on the hands, turning your chest over to the right. And I'll bring it back to center. We'll take it over to the left side once again, but this time round, lifting in the hips and bringing your heel in slightly. So we take a very moderate pigeon shape with the front leg not being at 90, but placing the hands on the mat. Push the top of your foot into the floor and see if there's a way to get the back knee to not make contact. So as you lengthen out, you can just keep the chest up nice and high. And there's this activation through the back leg by pushing top of the foot down, keeping knee off the mat. Exhale, bring the knee down, come down onto the forearms. It's early on in the practice, and we don't want to overstretch when the body's still cold. That's why we modify this pigeon pose, to make it more forgiving. Keep a length in your back. You will approach these postures in a different light. And you revisit them. So let's come back up onto the hands. And then carefully sit to the side so that we can switch and take it over to the opposite side of the mat. So once again, bringing the heel closer to groin, back leg is straight. And as you find this position with the chest up, push the top of the back foot into the mat, float the back knee off the mat. Feel that activation through the back leg. And then you'll bring your knee down, forearms down onto the mat, keeping hips square and maintaining length in your back. So you'll find that it's a glute stretch, even though it's not as intense as the full pigeon where we've got front leg at 90. It's maybe not going to be as intense on the hips with the leg being at more of a 45-degree angle. But still holding and feeling that stretch. targeting the glutes. You can use the inhale to come back up onto the hands, sitting on the mat and then coming back to center. Now you'll take the opposite leg, get the knee to point to the front, step your opposite foot over, pull this leg back so that we stack knees as much as possible. Now that we've got this gomakasana shape, this cow face shape, option of sitting in an upright position, or bring your chest and chin forwards. As you lean forwards, keep weight in the sit bones. Don't let the bum lift off the mat. Keep weight down, rooting down through the hips or the glutes, and just sort of working your chest over your top leg. You might find that's targeting the glutes, but in a slightly different way. Starting off with a few nice and active stretches before there's a form of flow on the mat. Use your inhale to come back up. And now it's time to switch legs. So take the top leg, get it at the bottom, step your opposite foot over, and pull your top leg over in order to stack the knees. Now as you stack the knees into gomakasana, take an inhale to get length, and maybe you stay here. Alternatively, exhale, come down. The hips are quite complicated. The structure of the hips and the muscles around and that entire area of the body is quite intricate. So there's also a large group of muscles. So we spend a bit more time when it comes to stretching in the hip area. Patience is key. Maybe you can go a little bit deeper before we get out of the posture. Make sure to still root through the sit bones and not lifting up or leaning forwards too much. And then use your inhale to come up. We'll switch legs. So get your opposite leg at the bottom, leg at 90, top leg matching the bottom leg with both feet flexed. So not pulling the leg in and getting it more to a 45 or closer to the glutes, but instead keeping a nice 90-degree angle. You should see a bit of a triangle shape in between the legs. If this is naturally not comfortable, then you might want to stay in an upright position. If you find that it's fairly easy to come down, you can turn it into a forward bend. But be mindful of the hips and make sure you keep the feet active. It's an active approach on the pose. And by keeping the feet active, we get better activation through the legs, simply to protect the knees. So maybe the knee is up here, then you can just place a hand on the knee and over time work it down. Wherever you are, hold the posture. Don't relax into the pose. If you do a forward bend, get length in your spine and lean forwards with chest and chin. It's a very detailed, thorough sort of approach to the posture. We're not holding it for too long. It's more of an active approach. 30 seconds or so. Maybe you can go a little bit deeper. But it's active. You don't let the feet relax, you keep them active. Use your inhale to make your way back up. And let's slowly get out of this one, switching legs. Should you feel the need to shake it out, do so. But then we get the opposite leg at the bottom, 90 degrees. Top leg to match, flexing in the feet, finding your position. Don't be discouraged if the leg is sitting up here. You will, over time, get more comfortable in the posture or get more mobility in the posture. It's not to say it's going to be incredibly comfortable, but once you've got your position, take a nice deep inhale, exhale, maybe moving forwards or just staying in that upright shape, and breathe. A nice triangle shape in between the legs. If you don't see that triangle shape, maybe one leg is bent too much. Sort of a 90-90 position with the legs. Very much working into the hips. First, a bit of glute stretches, loosening up in the muscle area, and then working into this, what we call external rotation of the hips, in order to open up a bit. Hip opening can be very much like back bending in the yoga practice, something that we don't always look forward to, unless you naturally have open hips. Or maybe it's simply something that really makes you feel good after practice and you end up doing it quite often. But it can be challenging. Breath stays nice and deep. If you want to take it a bit deeper, you can do so. You will use your in-breath to make your way back up. And then let's let go of this posture, maybe straighten out the legs, shake it out. Bring the soles of the feet together, knees out to the sides. Leave space between the body and the feet. Just move your knees up and down. A bit of a modified Baddha Konasana. And then stop moving the legs and actively just pull your knees down towards the floor. You can keep length in your spine. And just feel that very mild hip opener compared to the previous posture. Letting go of the feet. Step your feet onto the mat, so you might want to use the hands for a bit of support. And as you come up into this yogic squat, this malasana position, we won't do hands to prayer. But instead you're going to get the arms away from your knees, drop your one knee down to the floor, and then you make it back up. Take it back up, and then you take the opposite knee down and back up. Dropping down and up, opposite side, down and up. Bit of internal rotation with the hips, down and up, down and up. You can make your way back into a seated position, unlike me, and then take the legs out in front into a normal seated position. So we've got feet together, flexing in the feet. Start to walk your hands all the way to the feet if you can, gripping hold of the balls of the feet. Use an inhale to get length in your spine, and exhale, turn it into a bit of a forward bend. Just stretching out the hamstrings, a part of the body we haven't really looked at yet. It was more about getting into the hips, and we'll be working into that area a bit more. First for a bit of internal rotation, so making your way back up. Place your hands behind your body. Step your feet wider than mat distance. And bring your left knee down towards the mat. So the right knee sort of stays steady. Just work the left knee down onto the mat. Bring it back up. Take your right knee down towards the floor. Maybe it doesn't touch. Doesn't matter as long as you do this internal rotation. Bring it back up. Widen your stance a little bit and work your knees towards the midline. It's an interesting shape. It's also an interesting stretch. As you do this, if you feel like you have absolutely no mobility, this internal rotation, it's something you can do more often. We tend to take the legs out to the sides, but not really inwards. Slowly take the legs apart, cross your legs, let's get into box pose or all fours. This all fours position, a bit of a cat and cow. Let's just get into the spine by exhaling, tucking chin, rounding spine. Inhale, arch in the back, look up. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale to a cat stretch. Inhale, cow. Now exhale back to neutral position. And we'll start on the right leg. You can straighten the right leg to the back of the mat. Bring the leg out to the right side. Place your foot down in line with your knee, more or less. Sliding your leg out and getting down onto your forearms if you have the flexibility. But notice how I move from hands being below the shoulders. I keep them below the shoulders by readjusting the body into the shape. So now we do a lateral movement with the leg. So we are getting into the hip, but it's more about the adductor muscle, the inner thigh muscles, loosening up a little bit. We want to do a little bit of pancake work or Upavista Konasana preparation. So this is a good place to start, stretching one leg in isolation, getting into that inner thigh muscle group. It's active, you're not relaxing too much. You're pushing the foot into the mat. You can pull the kneecap up, meaning keep a bit of activation throughout. And get back up onto the hands first, and then slide your foot back. Place the hands below the shoulder. Lift the right foot. Take your leg back, and then place knee onto mat. So the same way we came into the posture, we're getting out of it. Straighten your left leg, and then take the left leg to the left side of the room or studio. Place the foot down. Start to slide it out to the side. Be very mindful of how far you want to take it. You don't want to overstretch. You can always start with a more conservative approach. As you come down onto the forearms, hold this position, activate the left leg. Feel that you get a nice stretch along the inner leg muscles. Giving the lower body a nice bit of attention, stretching in and around the waist, or the hip area at least, on the lower legs, upper leg area, inner legs. The breath stays even. It's going to be interesting closer to the end of the practice to do a sun salutation or two and to feel what the mobility is like in the body from all the active stretching. Slowly up onto the hands. Position the hands back onto the mat. Slide the foot back slightly. Lift the left foot. Take the leg back. And placing knee onto the mat. Now tuck toes. Straighten your legs. Taking hips up into a downward facing dog. Walk out the downward facing dog. So start to feel into the calf muscles and the ankles. Just bend one knee at a time, actively working the opposite heel down towards the mat. Doesn't have to touch, but you're working it in that direction. Now we will be approaching our pigeon with the front leg at 90. So I'll take the right leg to ceiling. Exhale, place your right leg behind your hands. Your leg is at a 90-degree angle. Walk your back knee further back. A nice way to approach this perhaps is to pin the leg to the mat by placing hand onto foot and one hand onto knee. You work the groin or the base of the spine down towards the mat. Option of staying here, being in an upright position in this pigeon is not a bad shape. Keep flexing the front foot, keep the back leg active, and push your legs into the mat. Think of really pushing down into the floor. And then you can come down onto the forearms or even take the arms out in front, see what works for you. But the idea is to keep the front leg at 90, unlike the very first pigeon we did early on in the practice. Keep pushing the front leg down into the mat. It's going to give you that very active stretch, which is what we want for this practice. Fine. This is simply just a deeper stretch if we keep the front leg at 90. You can make your way back up onto your hands. Now we'll be sitting on the mat. Pull the back leg in just a little bit. Now for more range of motion work from an internal perspective, you want to keep the left knee firmly on the mat and lift the foot off the floor. So you push the left knee down and you lift the foot and you hold it. Feel that activation. Bring it down. Take it up once again. Lift and hold. Flex or point with the foot as long as it's active. Bring it down and one more. Take it back up. Holding it there. And then bring it down. Now let's get back into that pigeon-like position. Push away from the mat. Step your right leg back into a down dog. You can walk it out. If you feel the need to, you might find that it's not too intense to get out of the posture because of all the hip preparation work we did for this pigeon. Now, and I'll take your left leg up to ceiling. Exhale. Place your left knee onto the mat. You might find the one side's a bit more tight than the other. So pin the leg. That's always a good position to be in. It's not a must. Walking the back knee further back, working the groin down towards the floor. Option of staying here, or keep the front foot active. Come down onto the forearms even, straightening the arms out in front. but most importantly, pushing the front leg into the mat to keep that activation. Hips stay square. It's not about how deep you're going. You just stay within your limits. You allow the body to benefit from the stretch. Breath is even. The breath will help you in this posture. Maybe you want to go a little bit deeper the longer we hold it. Using the inhale to come back up onto the hands, you want to sit to the side. With the back leg more or less at 90, it's not too important. Push the knee into the floor, lift the back foot off the mat. Feel that unique activation. Bring it down. Do a second one, taking it up. Take it as high as you can. It's maybe not the most comfortable sort of lift. Bring it down, and one more, take it back up. Pushing knee into the floor. Pushing front leg into the floor. And then bring it down. Hands back onto the mat. Push away. Step it back. Downward facing dog. Walk it out. It's now time for our Upavesta Konasana or pancake work. So you can make your way into a seated position by bending knees and getting into seated. Take the legs nice and wide. You should be able to touch the toes when you reach. If you don't have the flexibility, just make sure the legs are not too wide. But now in this position, we're going to first be working on active range of motion by moving back and forth. To make it a bit more intense or to get better activation in the back, interlace your fingers behind your head, flex your feet, push the heels into the mat. Instead of getting the elbows to point forwards, pull the elbows back, and in this position, push your head into your hands. Now inhale, lift in the sternum. Exhale, work your chest a little bit closer to the floor. Inhale, come up. Keep your spine flat. Exhale, come down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Keep pushing head into the hands. Inhale up. Exhale down. In breath up. With the last one, you simply hold it there. Inhale, making your way back up. Now, if you feel quite an intense pull by the inner knees, and it's very intense, then you might want to bring the legs a little bit closer together, or even get a bit of a bend in the knees. That's also fine as long as you push the heels down. Alternatively, let's just bring the hands out in front, leaning forwards with chest and chin, and hold this position. Should you want to go any further, imagine that you are pushing something away from your body. So it's not simply a case of reaching by rounding in the spine, but instead lengthening in the spine, lifting in the chest, and pushing something away from your body. But be sure to not let the feet tilt inwards as you hold this shape. Now we'll maintain this activation. Use an inhale to lift your head and then walk on the exhale the hands over to the one side. Doesn't matter which side you go to first, just walk it to the side. You can maybe even get the hands past the leg and then walk it back to center on inhale, and exhale, walk it over to the opposite side or maybe past the leg. Bring it back to center, back to the opposite side. Back to center and over to the opposite side. And slowly coming back to center and making your way back up. Let's bend into the knees and take it all the way into a downward facing dog so that you can stretch out the legs and the hamstrings. Bending into knees, look up and then get into a seated position. As you get to seated, straighten your legs and slowly curl all the way down onto the mat. As you relax back into this corpse pose shape, feel that there's no tension in the body. And for the first time in the practice, let go of the controlled breathing and replace it with absolutely natural breathing. You're not forcing at all, not controlling, but a complete letting go. Stay in this corpse pose for as long as you like.